All right, let's look at one of the greatest lies in the media. And that is, the problem with capitalism is, stop. Is the U.S. a capitalist system? And what are the effects of central planning? One of the lies that you'll see in the media is that they'll try to treat the U.S. as if it's some type of capitalist system when it's not a capitalist system at all. The Federal Reserve, the central banks in general, but the Federal Reserve specifically, has been engaging in fraud at least for the last 20 years, starting in the 90s. In a truly capitalist system, the market determines things. The market would determine interest rates, the market would determine demand, etc. When you keep interest rates for a very low for a very long time, and if you keep interest rates artificially low, that is not capitalism. That is central planning. You are basically saying, we know what the market needs. No, the market determines what it needs. And this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. They think that, capitalism is broken or whatnot, when in reality they don't realize in the last 20 years, they haven't been living, for Americans that is, in a capitalist system. Notice how the Federal Reserve is powerless against the California drought, or any drought for that matter. What can they do about the drought? Nothing, right? They're powerless against it. They can keep interest rates high or low. It doesn't matter. If the market had determined interest rates, we would already have a solution to the drought. Because what would happen is interest rates would have been higher. People wouldn't have been able to go into real estate and all these a good one would be tech right now. All of these people getting degrees in tech, which are going to be useless in the future, because those jobs wouldn't be hiring. There wouldn't be these artificially low interest rates that allow people to do whatever they want. Right? People would actually have to go to where there are jobs, and there are job opportunities here. Same thing with cancer. Deadlier forms of it, like pancreatic cancer. The Federal Reserve has caused people to die from cancer. It's obvious because, again, look at the labor shortage in medicine. Why do we have a labor shortage? Why are people going to Wall Street? Why are they going to Wall Street when in reality there's more of a demand for medicine than there would ever be for bankers? The Federal Reserve. Keeping interest rates low makes borrowing easy. So you can lever 40 to 1 and go invest in real estate or whatever it is. Right? They're actually contributing to people dying of cancer. If you have a family member who has died of cancer, or a friend, or you have cancer because of the Federal Reserve. I interviewed a guy not too long ago, I'd say about a year ago, and he had worked in the medical system, and he had a machine learning algorithm which was looking at how, what was really fundamentally the cause of cancer, what was behind it, and his goal was to eventually use it to cure cancer, to stop it from occurring. But what he was shocked to find is that hospitals weren't interested in it at all. And the reason why hospitals weren't interested in it was because, they were trying to appease their investors, which is a good thing to do, for them, that is. And the investors, levering 40 to 1, wanted the sure thing. Curing cancer is kind of a risk because you might not actually cure it. And so you go with the sure thing, which is just prescription medicine. And his point was, even though he had these really advanced algorithms, nobody really had very much interest in them. And I thought, wow, here we have someone who is looking at trying to cure a lot of diseases, and we've completely unincentivized that. And these hospitals, which should be thinking about our best interest, are not, because the investors want the sure thing. People who are dying of cancer right now don't need to really be dying of cancer, but the Federal Reserve is part of the reason why you're dying of cancer. How about challenges to energy demand and using energy efficiently so everyone has access to it? That's another challenge. Federal Reserve doesn't help. The rising medical labor shortage that continues to grow. And this kills me too, because you would think the idiots at the Federal Reserve, they're economists, you'd see a labor shortage of 30% and you'd be like, this is a problem. This is a huge problem. But they're not. Doesn't matter to them. What about the tech rush that has created zero jobs in the long run, and businesses that do nothing of any value? Really? LEO Motors struggles, but Snapchat doesn't? Who's increasing output? They are. Snapchat isn't. What planet are these people living on? And finally, the Federal Reserve, they can't pop an asset bubble to save their life. And if you think about the French Revolution, I say that may end up being literal, because when people finally get ticked off, they're not reasonable at all. I mean, these bankers aren't scared enough. They need to be more scared. They need to look at history and say, there have been some pretty bad times to be bankers. If home prices or stock prices rise, that is inflation. That's a very, very bad sign. If you look at the 200-year history of homes in America, they don't rise very much. They should never be rising 10% a year. That's a very bad sign. By the way, I don't put this on the list, but the Federal Reserve has also created what I call migration inflation, which is everybody moving to California, or everybody moving to this, or everybody moving. Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of states like Nebraska, as a case in point, that need people, but they can't get people because everybody wants to live in California because it's cool. Morons. That's what they've done. So what's the solution? So here's my question for Americans. How bad do things have to get before you'll finally do something? I mean, do food prices have to rise 2,000% before you'll finally put Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke in jail where they belong? I mean, what do food prices have to cost? Same thing with water or gas prices. I mean, we could do this now and we could avoid this. But what has to happen? Sooner we act, the less painful it will be. There are high school graduates right now that are making decisions about what to do, right? We need them to go into medicine, but technically they could make more money going to Wall Street. If we're not doing anything, they're going to go to Wall Street and not medicine. That's a problem. We all get poorer. Every time you think of an unemployed person, it leads to the question, what did they do wrong? Bad times lead to good times later because people learn and grow from those bad times. I say Texas here. Texas is a good example. Look what happened in the 80s. We got killed with energy. Now we're not totally dependent on energy. Oil prices have fallen, but our unemployment rate's at 4.4%. That wouldn't have happened in the 80s. If oil prices had fallen, our unemployment rate would be above 10%. We learned. We grew. Bad times are good because they make us ask questions that we normally wouldn't ask. We need to learn from those bad times. So, my challenge to Americans, how bad do things have to get before you'll finally start to care and shut down and prosecute these individuals at the Federal Reserve? They are corrupt, and they need to be put to an end. It's not a matter of end the Fed. It's a matter of destroy the Fed and prosecute everybody. All of the Fed governors, the Federal Reserve chairwoman now, the former Federal Reserve chairmen, Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke. Paul Volcker gets a pass because he did the right thing. These individuals are corrupt and they need to be prosecuted.